Hello, can you hear me? All right. So first of all, good morning. My name is Tomek, and I'm super happy that you guys believe that guys in glasses are smart. That gives me an extra credit. Uh, Again, Tomasz Nowicki, Technical Enablement Architect at Akamai, and today we are going to talk about training as code. Have you ever encountered this term, training as code, before? No? Okay, that's a good news for me. All right. So you probably all know Netflix, the digital online service where we can watch our favorite movies. But did you know that back in 1999, Netflix started from analog subscriptions? Basically, their customers could go through the list of available movies, order them, and then the movies would be sent to them via traditional mail. So a lot of things changed since that time. And in 2012, Mark Andreessen, Netscape's co-founder and one of the most influential men in the world, said that software is eating the world. Today, 10 years later, we can actually say that software already has eaten the world. So according to the Gartner's report, by the year 2025, about 70% businesses are going to use some kind of a digital adoption tool that will help to get most out of their services or tools. Also, digital adoption will be used um, uh, to master their processes, to make them more efficient. While we don't really need a special training to operate a web browser or Netflix, though typing in the movie title in the search box with a remote controller may be a bit difficult, there's a software, there might be software that is much more complicated than that, and we will need a dedicated training for that software. And I'm going to give this talk from a perspective of person who is responsible for creating and maintaining technical trainings. At Akamai University, we have a number of different courses about web security and web delivery. Those are all highly technical. They all have extended hands-on part in the form of labs. We also host an cloud environment to support those trainings, where our participants can basically play with all the features that we are trying to teach them, the kind of the virtual sandboxes for them. And this software is constantly changing. This is one of our challenges that every month we are facing with new releases, new updates, new functions, new functionalities, not mentioning some kind of rebranding and tossing different features into the different products. So that's the challenge I'm facing on everyday basis. I assume that some of you may be having the same issues in your work. So let's go to the next slide. So this communicates your software has been updated. For those eager to play with new functionalities, that's a piece of good news. For those who hate interface changes, not so much. But for us, technical content creators, it's always more work. And we have only little time before next update pops up. Have you ever been wondering how is that possible that the software updates are so frequent, even though they are not that perfect sometimes, because they occasionally mess up things and make things worse? They're really frequent in most cases. And actually we are expecting nowadays for the updates to be very frequent. So software development methodologies evolved during over the years. Quick updates, bug fixes, quick development cycles. All of this has been achieved by a number of different, let's say, methodologies and also tools. So first of all, in software engineering, effect of shortened software development cycle was achieved by moving from waterfall project management on the left to agile. You may have heard that term before. So basically, instead of betting on one big launch of the new software or an update, there will be a kind of iterative process where the developer teams would circle through requirements, plan, and all the results to deliver smaller but consumable piece of software. And those requirements, plans, and results would be continuously reviewed by teams. They would get a feedback from the field. So it will give them natural, let's say, mechanism to respond to the feedback. But have you heard about DevOps? Okay, so we can say that DevOps is a very similar change, but it's not only about code, it's about entire software life cycle. So basically, not only development, dev, but also operations and entire project management and entire company philosophy would be impacted by this way of thinking. So, if we think about DevOps, we may say that's a combination of cultural philosophies, practices, and tools that increase organizations' ability to deliver either applications or service at very high speed. And now, I'm not going to talk about DevOps too much, but one of the principles of DevOps is called everything as code. It started from a kind of a buzzword, infrastructure as code. And it's a kind of an approach in the development that code would define many resources. Not only code builds the application, but with the code we can also, let's say, spin up servers, we can create some configurations. So the more we can keep in code, the better from the perspective of DevOps and automations. So how does it work? Imagine that our code is a recipe and that you have super smart food processor. The food processor can iterate through the recipe. It can fetch all necessary resources. It can mix them, and moreover, it can repeatedly render a perfect cake. And in our case, the perfect cake may be anything. It may be configuration, and can be some setup, and maybe something else, but we will get there quickly in the future. So, how can we, technical content owners, benefit from training as code? Is there any way that training can become a code as well? I will try to answer this question soon, but before that, I wanted to quickly make sure that we all know two terms I'm going to rely on later. So first of all, GitHub. Have you heard about GitHub? Yes. Could you give me a definition of GitHub? Distributed version control. Yeah, that's short, but to the point. We can say that this is also a place where developers keep their... it's also a source, a place where developers would keep their code. Version control, so version control, you'll probably encountered version control in other places, like for example Google Docs or any other tool from Google Workspace where you have the view history tool, and you can review what were the changes that had been done to the document before. Distributed, yes, because it's online, you can access it from everywhere. So it's a pretty good definition. What's very important about it, the collaboration. This word has been part of the talks today before. GitHub allows people to collaborate. Those dots here, you can see those are. Can I? Yeah. Those dots here that you can see, those are basically a kind of a milestones for the code. People would add the following versions, and it's not only one person. The other person can add something. There can be a hotfix done, meaning that's a forking. And then we can merge versions together. So it's a great tool for text-based sources to cooperate on. All right. Have you heard about Markdown? Yes, that's good. I'm happy. So Markdown, for those who haven't heard about it, is a lightweight markup language that can add formatting elements and to plain text documents. Basically, philosophy behind the Markdown is that plain text should be readable without all those weird tags that we can see in HTML, for example. But it should also have this option that we can add some text formatting, like, for example, lists or bold or italics. So that's what Markdown is doing. And here we have a very simple example. On the left-hand side, you can see the Markdown with the word is surrounded by asterisks, and in effect, you would see it in a bold. So now that we know those two, let me get back to our food processing analogy, and let me tell you what we managed to achieve in terms of training as a code in our company. So we came up with the idea of TrainKit. TrainKit is a kind of a framework that consists of 3 elements. First, it's a content repository. Basically, those are text files with content. They are authored in Markdown, and they are being kept and versioned in GitHub. The other thing is a Markdown toolkit. We call it MDTK in a short. You can think about it as a food processor that can do all the magic for us. It can generate slides, it can generate documents, like, for example, lab manuals or lab handouts. This processor features syntax extensions for Markdown. First of all, obviously, it supports Markdown itself, but it also allows for including Markdown fragments from other files. It gives us variable interpolation, which allows us for templating. It provides us a document structure. It gives us kind of a containers and syntax highlighting for different programming languages. We quite often use code snippets that can be used as an example by our customers, and it's super handy if we can color code the syntax. So a couple of real screenshots. This is our repository. As you can see, there are a number of different products, simply folders, and on the right-hand side, you can see just names of the trainings or pieces of the trainings. This is MDTK. Again, it's you can find it on a GitHub. You can download it and start using. Here is an example of a Markdown file, and here you can see that we are importing an CSS file, exactly the same kind of CSS that is being used for HTML. Here are some variables that we can interpolate, and also here. And I should have one more example here where you can see how the syntax highlighting is being done. So it's automatic, meaning like we don't have to color code those fragments. We just put the piece and select that the language that this was written in is a shell, and it will get color coded for us. I think I missed one thing. Sorry, I will go back. I haven't say about infrastructure tooling. It's kind of out of scope for today's talk, just because it's highly technical. But if you know Terraform, and if you're familiar with AWS, you can think about the infrastructure just as a bunch of different servers that are just necessary for our trainings to be completed. They also have a kind of pre-baked tools, so our customers don't have to install anything on them. All right, so this is it. Now let's talk about advantages of training as code. So first of all, customization. As I mentioned before, the variables interpolation, it's give us a unique opportunity to customize the content. And we can do a number of different things. For example, we can have a different template for customers, and we can have different template for our partners. There are slight differences between materials, but still. Moreover, you can create a customer-specific content with customer examples, customer names, something that will that will give our customers this feeling that the training is created really for them. And you can also create participant-specific content. I don't know, you can give passwords in the lab manual, so they don't have to look for them in different places. So the options of customizations are huge. The other thing, consistency. Uniform look and feel across a large environment. It's pretty much because of the styles. So we can use different style. We can have one style, then we can, if we are, for example, asked by marketing to rebrand, we can just modify the style, and entire portfolio will be updated with new look and feel, just by updating one file. Okay, scalability, again, templates. We can use them for many resources, and that will give us an opportunity to add more trainings. Like, for example, as I mentioned, you can have participant-specific content. So imagine that that we have 30 people in the training. I can easily generate 30 variants of the same materials. Version control, we briefly talked about the version control. Track changes over time, and not only track, but also revert to previous version if something went wrong. And one of the most important things that I liked, auditability and cooperation. Again, because our files are being kept in a GitHub. We can ask our SMEs or peers from a team to review snippets of content, and because this content is those snippets are being included in a number of different materials, we don't have to ask them to review this again and again and again. They would just review one piece, and that will be included in different places as well. And reuse. By reuse, I again mean including different, including pieces of training in a bigger portfolio. Let's say, for example, that we have 10 lab manuals, and every single starts from instructions how to log in and how to get started with the training. And something changes, the procedure changes. And because I have it configured as a one file that is being then included in 10 different lab manuals, I only change the instructions once, and it's getting automatically added to or updated in 10 different labs. So you don't have to do it 10 times, you do it just once. I think I'm out of batteries in my clicker. No? Can I have next slide, please? Not clicking. All right, so we can skip it. It's one more slide, so I don't have to really use it. So you may ask me the question, how does it tie to the main theme of the conference? Over the course of this, thank you. Over the course of this conference, you've heard or you will hear about how the COVID impacted the way we work, entire industry, the way we learn, the way we teach. I'm not going to go into this, but I believe that we can all agree that fact of reduced engagement during the online sessions is one of the crucial factors here. And what can training as code do with this? We can create more engaging, more personalized, dedicated materials. We can assure that the quality of materials is higher because of this entire review process, and the collaboration, I believe what it's been said, I think Ray said that we always collaborate on our documents, and this is always work of number of people. So GitHub and the way of, I believe that the way we create trainings allows a collaboration. And I hope this is something that will help during the crises like COVID. Although I hope this will not happen again. So that's it.
Thank you. So the AI decided it's the time to reboot the computer from which your presentation was shown. So apologies again.
That's fine.
Do you have any questions?
Hi, I'm Jadwiga. I'm a tech writer. I have a question. Maybe I missed it. So please repeat again. What's your tool set? As far as I understand, you have the repository on GitHub. Mm-hmm. You're using Markdown.
Markdown toolkit.
Toolkit as an editor.
It's not an editor. It's a tool that compile. I call it food processor because those are a bunch of scripts that iterate through the Markdown files and kind of combine it together in the way we want.
And that's it?
And that's it. There are, for the Markdown, there are editors. Like you can use Typora or something else because it's easier to write in those. But basically, the core is MDTK that you can find on GitHub, which is kind of processing our recipes to get us the final content.
So the Markdown toolkit
Markdown toolkit.
Toolkit does everything: the variables, the customization, and the reuse.
Yeah, it does the variables. Yeah, that's.
Okay, thank you.
I can hear you.
My name is Rafał, and my question is, what is the most common output from the Markdown toolkit? Mm-hmm. So, in which form your attendees get some presentations, or I don't know.
Mm-hmm. So the question was, what's the common output from the Markdown? It's an HTML. We believe that's the easiest. For our participants, that's the best output, but we also generate PDFs. For example, if someone wants to print out the lab manual, which we are not encouraging because we want to be, we want to be saving our planet and saving trees. But yeah, we do generate PDFs as well. But mainly it's HTML because it's more interactive. You can have it on your phone, you can have it on your tablet. It's pretty it adjusts it into the screen pretty well.
Okay, any more questions? There's one, here's one.
So I'm still Ray Gallen. One of the things that has been puzzling me for a long time is the fascination in certain areas of documentation with Markdown. I understand that it's a lot easier to use than HTML, but what it doesn't do is it doesn't provide semantically rich material that can be reused in an omni-channel kind of environment in ways that are perhaps a bit more varied and different than what you just described. Now, I want to be careful because the usual answer to that is, well, you know, you could do it in DITA, and DITA is very, very complex, or other XML can be very, very complex for certain projects that don't require that level of complexity. So I'm not trying to be specifically, you know, an XML advocate here, but asking what is the interest in, as it were, going back to a system that combines in some way semantic tagging and display the way that HTML does, when the whole thrust of the movement towards structured content has been to separate structure from display. And that's something that continues to puzzle me, is why people want to go back to combining display and structure.
But what do you mean by structure?
Well, for example, structure is if something is a procedure, something is a step, something is a bit of conceptual information. These are semantic tags. And there are a lot of ways you can get semantic tags. You don't have to do it in XML. I've seen solutions that do it in an SQL database, for example, in which all the tagging is done in an envelope so that the writer doesn't ever have to look at them. And the writer is just doing plain text. So some of the same reasons why you want to do Markdown, because it takes the mess away. But it provides the semantic tagging as well as display. And
it does, but the display is very limited. There are many tags that are being used, and the text is still readable. But I understand your concern, yeah.
Okay, it's okay now. I believe the remaining questions will have to be asked during